Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we learn about a topic called public static void main. What is the meaning of public static void main, right? So whenever you were just looking at the videos, okay, earlier my previous videos. So I was actually running this something called inside a class. I was running a method called public static void main, right? Okay. So what is this method? Okay, this is one of the interview question. So whenever you just go for any interview, okay, so the interviewer asks you the question like what is meant by public static void main. Okay, so let's break down the keywords. So generally, so I was interested to start with a topic called keywords. Okay, so before going to that topic, what I thought is let's actually give a basic keywords which we are already using in our uh, program. Okay, I just wanted to go through that. Fine. So let's first break down this keywords. We will go one by one. Like let's start with public static void main. And what is the string args arguments? Okay, so if you just hover over this, okay, hover over the keywords and all of these things, right, it will give you what type of what. So first of all, look into this. What does it says? Public static final, I mean, string is a class. Okay, it says that it is defined under what package? Java.lang package. And it is extending what? It is extending object base class. So just remember one thing. Okay, I will tell you in my future also, but just remember one thing, that all the classes inside the Java, okay, by defaultly they extend a class called object. Object is a base class. Okay, for example, this payment, even though I don't extend that, uh, defaultly I'm not extending this, right, but Java will extend a class called object. Okay, we will learn about that object class in our future classes. Okay, but for just now, just understand that by default all the classes inside the Java will extend a class called object. So object has some uh, methods which will be used across your project. Okay, so commonly used methods that are defined inside a class called object. Okay, now let's break down this keywords public static void main. Okay, before going to that, what do you mean by this public static void main? Okay, so this is the entry point of Java application, and JVM always starts execution from here. Fine. So whenever you're trying to uh, upload this, whenever you're trying to run the public static void main, what happens is, for example, I saved something called payment.java. Okay, here we are saying that a.java, but let's consider we are saying payment.java. Okay, so once you save payment.java, what happens internally is, okay, so when you just type, so here when you just type something called, okay, I'll show you here. Just let me go to this. I'm just running this. So one second, I'll show you what I mean to it. So internally what happens is, so this payment is saved with something called payment.java. If I just open you inside a finder, maybe I just told you in even my previous videos also, that this payment is been saved with an extension called payment.java. Okay, now what happens internally is, okay, when you save this payment.java and when you compile it, okay, compile in the sense we are using a command called java c. Using the Java compiler, okay, we are compiling the program. What is my compiler? Compiler is nothing but it is trying to execute your program line by line, and it checks for any syntactical errors. Okay, and syntactical errors which with respect to the Java. Once that is compiled, the Java file will be saved as .class file. So there will be one more file created here called .java. So for example, so what happens is internally there will be a classes got generated here. If I just run this, so if you check earlier, there was some, if I just run this, right? If I'll tell you, excuse me, this is taking some couple of minutes to run this. What it says, could not find or load hello world. Okay, fine. Because the class it was running is was the hello world here. Okay, so let me run this payment. Okay, if you run, just run this payment. So what will happen is, inside this payment, okay, payment was saved with payment.java. Okay, so this, there is some structure defined that we will discuss later. So generally, whenever you compile payment.java, internally that java file will be saved inside the dot class file, will be saved inside this file, it's a folder itself. But I have given some structure such that whenever I run this payment.java, it should save that dot class file in this method. Okay, if you just go here, so it is saved with something called payment.class or payment service.class. So when I just run this internally, what happens is this payment.java, which payment.java will be converted to payment.class. That's what is mentioned here. Okay, so this payment.java, when you compile, it will be converted to payment.class file, that is in the bytecode format. Okay, and it will, what happens is internally, this is JVM architecture, we will learn in internally more there. It will look, so there is something called class loader. Okay, it will load that byte code and converts, it will, there is something called bytecode verifier. Okay, and it will be passed to chit compiler. Finally this will be converted to native machine code. Okay, and what happens here, this will be, I'm trying to explain you the flow. Okay, first of all, JVM will load the dot class file, and JVM looks for the public static void main. Okay, if it found, execution will start here. If it not found, we will get the runtime error. Okay, is that clear? So what happens if there is no public static void main here in the payment.java? Okay, what happens is, you just look into this. When I just remove this, okay, I can't even run it. So here compilation is not showing anyway, I could have shown you, but I can't even run the Java file. Okay, so what happens, you, this is the entry point, public static void main is the entry point in the Java. Okay, to run any Java program. Okay, now let's break down this public static void main keyword. Well, let's go with keyword by keyword. Okay, what is meant by public? So public is nothing but this can be accessed from anywhere. Accessibility. Okay, this is one of the access modifier. JVM is outside, right? JVM is outside. It is trying to find that method, comes something called main method. Okay, for that reason, it needs some access. So that access is nothing but public. Okay, if I give private, right, if you just check, if I declare this private, if you check one thing, what I'm trying to say here is this enable button got enabled. If I give private, okay, private is nothing but, if you check, the execution has been removed. So JVM will look for the main method with the public accessifier. Private is nothing but, we will discuss in more in our videos, next videos. So for just now, concentrate what is meant by public keyword. Okay, public is nothing but this JVM is looking for a main method with the public access modifier. Okay, JVM is outside, right, outside our program, it is looking for that. Okay, now, so must be JVM is outside your class and must be public so that JVM can access this. What is meant by JVM? Java Virtual Machine. If not public, it will give an error called main method not found. Okay. Now, what is meant by static? So static is nothing but, so generally what happens is, in order to access this main method, okay, so you need to create a object of that main method. Okay, what is meant by main? You have to use new keyword. Okay, without using the new keyword, if I have to access that class, I will use something called static. So, so for example, what I mean to say is, so if I have to use this payment in my payment service, okay, this is class for now. Let me make it as, okay. So if I have to access payment, new payment. So let's say if I display, if I create some method called display here, okay. So I'll say its return type is string, okay, and display. So this is one method, we some generic method gives I have given, and I am saying return payment. Okay. Now, if I have to access this string method inside this static, right? I can't access directly. I have to create an object of this payment. So if I use display directly, I can't access this. It is giving some runtime error. Okay. Either I have to create a payment class, payment. I have to create an object of that, and using that I can access this display. Okay. Or what I can do is I can declare this method as static, so that I can reuse this display method. So when you just run this, it will display that payment. I did not get any compile time error, if you have observed. Okay. If I remove the static keyword, it will give me an error here. Okay. It says non-static display method cannot be referenced from a static context. So similarly, JVM is looking for a main method. Okay. You're not creating an object of this payment outside, right? Okay. So JVM is looking for a main method. Fine. That's why we are declaring this method as static. Fine. So what it says here, so static, no object needed. Class loaded. That's why we are giving static as main, and instance method need object. JVM does not create objects to start program. Does not create objects, right? So that's why I said JVM will not create an object, right? So we needed to access that main method, right? That's why we are declaring as static. Okay. What is meant by instance method? Instance method is nothing but whenever you are using new keyword, right? Whenever you are creating new keyword, that is but nothing but the instance methods. We will learn more about what is meant by instance later. Fine. So without static, what it is give? Non-static method cannot be accessed from reference. That's what we got right here. Non-static method display cannot be referenced from a static context. Okay. So what is meant by void? We are not returning if we are not returning anything to JVM, right? So that's why this method is called as a void. So if you check, display is returning something called string. We are returning some string here, right? Return string. If I don't want to return anything from this method, right? So this is giving me an error. Okay. If I don't want to return anything, I will give void. If I want to return something, I will mention it as string or integer. Okay. So we'll see more that, but if this method wants to return something, that's why this is declared as string. But okay, but we are not returning anything back to the JVM, right? That's why this method is void. Fine. Is that okay? That's why void no return to JVM. JVM does not expect any return value. Program ends when main finishes. So what is main? Main is a fixed name. JVM strictly looks for the name called main, and it is case sensitive. Okay, this it will, if I give capital main, right? Okay, if you check, this will be gone. Okay, or you get, if you give all in capital, it will not run. So it's strictly JVM will look for this. If you check this, this is enabled. Okay, this execution button got enabled. Okay, so so JVM will strictly looks for the main method. It is case sensitive. What is correct? Small all main word in all small letters. Incorrect is whatever if you give capital M, okay, this, or all in capital letters as main, that is incorrect. Okay, so there is one something called string arguments, command line arguments. Okay, so this string, right, string array. So here you are not passing any. So on the runtime, if I want to pass some args, right? So for example, right now, if I say string arg of 0, okay, so this says args of 0. This is an array. Okay, so what will happen? So either I have to declare this with string args of 1. Okay, now if I give one more string args of, okay, I said six, let's take it as 0, and this take it as 1, this one. Okay, so what I should do here, I should remove this args1. Okay, fine. So on the runtime, okay, if I want to give, so for example, if I have to give something called on the runtime, so right now if I just edit configurations here, okay, if you go to run and debug configurations on the runtime, okay, I want to declare some arguments here. Okay, for example, program arguments, like if I give 1 comma or hello with comma word. Okay, I said apply and okay. Okay, so what will happen if I want to print this args of 0? Give me a second. And args of 1. So what will happen? Here I have given argument on the runtime as hello, right? First argument. So if I just run this, I'll tell you. If I just, maybe it is giving an error here because I said args, right? So that's why. So when I just run this, it is giving. So if you earlier you checked, it is giving some error. Okay, what it is giving, that args are not found. Okay, I cannot find arg0 and arg1 because I have given args s of 0 and args x of 1. Okay, so it is looking for arg0, which is not there. That's why it is giving variable arg0 symbol location class payment is not found, cannot find that symbol. But actually what we are looking for arg0. Okay, right? So when I just run this, so what is the expectation here? Arg0 should be hello and arg1 should be world, right? Okay, so it is saying that, okay, the main thing what it is trying to give error here is that It is trying to consider everything as one thing only. Okay, hello world. So if I'm trying to give array of one, right, it is giving me an error called array index out of bound error. Okay, so that we will see later what is meant by that. It is giving some exception. Okay, so everything whatever I define inside that, this, I'll show you first. Let me run this. So hello world, it is considering everything on the runtime. If I have to give some words, right, it is considering this as a single string. Okay, so if you check this arcs of 0, this we have removed, right? So we should delete this. The problem is the system is slow. That's the problem. It is more taking more time. Even for small programs, this is taking long time. Okay, if you check what it is printing here, hello world, right? So what do you mean by the string array? It is a command line arguments. Okay, if I have to give some on the runtime, if I have to you wanted to give some variables, right? So since if you check here, okay, I have given with comma, so that's why it is considering as everything as one keyword there. Okay, so if I just give hello space world and if I run it, okay, you can check that I can even access args of 1. So on a string of 0 is nothing but it's a command line argument. Fine. So it is giving in some error here, says saying that you don't have that access, right? Or that keyword. Okay. So when I just run this, so you can check two words. One is hello, another is world. Earlier I have given hello comma world with representing with comma. Now if I wanted to give more words, right, I can give it with spaces. Fine. So at the end, here we are using Java app 1 2, where first one is hello and we gave it as Java app hello and world. So it printed Java aux of 0 as hello and aux of 1 as world. Fine. So let's debug, I mean, all these keywords again. So what do you mean by public? Public is nothing but to call by JVM from anywhere. Okay, what is meant by static? Make it class method so that it can be called using class name without creating an object of the class. That's what I said, right? Public is used to call the JVM, right? And static is nothing but it is class method so that it can be called from class name without creating an object of the class. Okay, what do you mean by void? Void is nothing but main method does not return to the JVM, right? We are not returning anything to the JVM. And what is meant by main method? Name of the method which is called by JVM. Okay, and what is meant by string? The main method accepts or one argument of type string array. This is command line argument. Public is declared, main method is declared as public since JVM calls it. And why it is defined as static? Because it calls the method without creating an object. And it is why it is declared as void? It is not returning anything, right? And this is the structure, strict structure main method follows. That's why it's a main method. And we are giving string arguments, right? And this is like on the runtime, if you want to pass some command line arguments, that's where we'll